This is my next, little bit more ambitious dry pour project. As with any concrete slab, you don't want organic material under the slab. And the reason for that is as that organic material decomposes, the volume of it shrinks, and you're left with voids under your concrete where it's not supported. Now, I don't think I had enough grass and weeds for that to be a problem in this particular situation, but I didn't want to deal with them while moving my concrete mix around and having the chance that they're going to stick up through and then I got to do something with it then. So I spent the first 10-15 minutes just getting rid of that. I'm just going to kind of rake out this gravel here. So my original plans for this were to do concrete pavers in this area. Concrete pavers don't eliminate the maintenance, the cracks between them, the amount of debris I have falling from trees and grass clippings will get in those cracks and I'll get weeds and grass to grow there anyway. So I've decided to go with a nice uniform surface of concrete. I've got probably 2 to 3 feet of gravel under this. During construction, I had to excavate that and fill it back in with gravel. So it's had a lot of time to settle, a few years, because I haven't gotten to this project, but now I'm ready to. And I think this dry pour concrete is going to make my life the easiest can be while getting a decent slab here. After I had the gravel prepped, I found the straightest board of appropriate length I had and a level. Then I set the board on the outside of my form, which is going to be the outer retaining block that I have, and the inside of my form, which is going to be this fire ring, so I could mark the height required on the fire ring. I wanted a little bit of pitch to drain away from the fire pit so the water hopefully runs away from that. I had a little bit too much gravel for that height, so I raked it up and just got rid of it. I was able to back the trailer right to our location here with the concrete in it to make my life a little easier. Next thing, I'm worried about the expansion of our metal fire ring. When it gets hot, it's going to want to grow in diameter. And if I don't put some buffer between the concrete and that, it's going to crack the concrete. So I'm going to wrap some, I thought about a lot of different things, some foam and stuff like that, but I think the easiest to deal with, I'm going to wrap some rope around it and leave it in there. That'll allow an expansion joint between the fire ring and our concrete. The other thing, that worked out pretty good. The other thing it'll do is tell me where I need to put the top of my concrete. I was able to move it around pretty easy and it stays in place. So I think that worked out pretty good. I was planning on going with 80-pound bags of crack-resistant concrete by Quikrete. Those are the orange bags, but of course, my local store didn't have enough to do the whole project. I need about 29 bags for this project. So I had to mix in some normal commercial grade, so to say, 60-pound bags of concrete. Now, a lot of people would ask, and rightfully so, why not just mix the concrete like normal and dump it in here? This right here is the biggest advantage in my opinion. I can take the bag from the trailer, put it directly into the form, open it up, rake it out. I'm not putting it in a wheelbarrow or a tub and adding water. That does make the project go significantly longer. Even if you've got a drum mixer, you're just handling the bags more times. And then my problem is working like this on a larger piece for one person to do. By the time I'm on my last pour, the first pour is going to be solidifying and I'm not going to get good adhesion between the two. And because this is a circle, I'd have to work around one way or do one pour and then do the left side of it and do the right side of it so they adhere together before the other one is dry. Anyway, this isn't easy by any means. We're still throwing around 60, 80-pound bags, but it's easier than mixing. Okay, I've got the concrete all raked out. That was perfect. I've got one extra bag if I need to add some. And I've got the level just below my edgers here and my rope. So the idea is, well, the biggest challenge with dry pour, in my opinion, is when you rake it or move it around, the cement goes to the bottom and the aggregate comes to the top. So you can see we've got a lot of aggregate. The stone on the top, that's not going to leave that good of a finish. That's why I've got this mason mix, which is basically cement and sand. I'm going to put a thin layer over all of it and screed that so there's less aggregate in it. It's going to be a little less, not quite as strong. That's why I want this aggregate right below to kind of bond into that mortar. We'll see. I've never done this before, but that's the plan. And you can see here I've got the same kind of retaining block that I used for the edgers, because this is a little bit high side. I've got it just below this surface. That's going to be my concrete level. So I guess I'll need a broom or something here to clean that up and then top it with the mortar. I took a few minutes to clean up any excess concrete around, specifically aggregate. I didn't want that falling into my mason mix and screwing up the top of my slab. So I just took a few minutes, cleaned that up with a broom, screed board, and then a drywall knife, just making sure everything was situated there. This is the first bag of mortar mix, or mason mix I should say, that I'm using. Just like before, placed it where I wanted it, cut it open, dumped it out. First I tried to transport shovel to move this around, but it did risk mixing up the concrete with this, so it wasn't really necessary. Then I switched to the drywall knife, and that actually worked pretty good to move one. This stuff moves around pretty easy. It's kind of powdery. It's like a flour mixture actually. So the added control of a smaller thing like this drywall knife actually fit the bill. It would be nice to have something a little bit wider even, but that's what I chose to go with. So I repeated that process again and again with each bag of mortar mix until I got an equal layer all around my circular slab. Then I switched to my screed board to get a nice level across all of it. This was not the easiest. The inside was okay, but just working around this retaining block made life a little bit hard. It'd have been much easier to do this ahead of time with a proper form and boards. I'd just ride my screed board on and have another person on the other end, but that's not the situation. I built all the retaining block ahead of time and just had to work around this, so it took significantly longer and probably didn't end up as good as it would have if I would have had a typical concrete form. After the screed board, I switched back to the drywall knife and just kind of tried to fine-tune things a little bit. Difficult to do that with the screed board working in these conditions, so just kind of use this to smooth out the high spots, and that worked okay. Then I put some fiberglass poles as an extension onto the handle of the drywall knife and just kind of drug it out radially to smooth out that way. It'd have been actually nice in hindsight to use something like a bull float on this powder. I think that would have smoothed it out okay, but that's a bit of a challenge when doing this type of concrete. Also, the slab is a bit difficult to work around. Use a regular kind of handheld float would have worked also, but then it's hard not to get footprints in this either. So this is the method I chose. Next time I think I would try to get something different, but I'm not sure what at this point. After I felt like I did everything I could with the drywall knife, I switched to a paint roller. I really like the texture this gives the surface, and it does a little bit of smoothing on its own. It wouldn't be nice to have an extra wide roller, but this is all I had. Now it's time to get the slab wet. So the goal is here is disturb our mix, our surface as little as possible while still getting it wet. So a regular spray attachment on the end of your hose set in mist setting is about the best we can do there. And just take your time and work around and try to get the surface uniformly wet so it starts setting and locking itself into place. And as time goes on, we can put more and more water on it so it seeps deeper into the slab. Now it's also been very wet here. That gravel underneath was wet, so it will pull moisture from the ground too over time. I didn't follow any set schedule on how often I watered this, but I just kept an eye on it, and whenever it was dried out, I went and added more water. And then got a feel for how much the surface could take, and then switched off of the mist setting finally and went to more of a shower setting. It also, so I did that for the first day and a half, and then we got some more rain, and it just naturally stayed wet. Here's the finished product. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than what it was. I have had a problem with surface pitting, and I believe this is due to the amount of rain we got a day and a half after I did this. I don't think this was set enough, and when that water's going down through the surface, it's displacing air. And I think it created these bubbles, or this hydraulic pressure that popped up our mix in a few spots. So I'm debating whether or not I just leave this or take some of my mason mix powder, spread it out, just trowel it off with that drywall knife and get it wet and see if I can get it to bond. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Might be a different color, but see if it works. I could pre-mix some mortar and top coat this thing. That would give it kind of a stucco look, I think. I don't want to do that at this point, but maybe I will. We'll see if this lasts, how the surface kind of holds up. I know before winter I'm going to have to do some sort of sealant. Because of the porous nature of this, I don't want water getting down there and freezing. That'll really create havoc. But I'll update you as things progress here on this slab. If you want updates on how this survives winters and over time, the best way to do that is subscribe to my channel. It's completely free, and you'll be notified of any update videos that I release. Thanks for watching. Adios. I did this patio about 9 years ago and mixed it with a drum mixer. You can see that doesn't hold up great either. I got to do some patching there. That'll be a project for later in the summer. I want to clean this thing up and top coat that. Here is the other dry pour slab I did with 100% concrete mix. I didn't have any of those issues on the surface with pieces popping off. So that's probably specific to that mortar mix I used. Don't know if I recommend that yet. We'll see how it holds up over time. But I've got the Traeger grill on here. This is serving its purpose.